Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Teachers Only edition of our Teachers Only live stream, I should say. So, this week we're talking about ESL teacher requirements. Excuse me. Now, I'm doing this. This is a different angle from last week where we walked through the job description and what was required there. This is more from the lines of as an online teacher. However, you really do need this if you're going to be teaching English for, well, yes, an online teacher, whether you're working for a company or whether you're in business for yourself. So this is how we're going to approach this one. Before we get into this, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and then that way you'll get the notifications and you can watch all the replays and you can watch all my content and really help you out there. So definitely like, subscribe, and share this with people who will benefit from it. Okay. All right. So let's take a look here. I'll go my glasses. All right. So we're going to focus on three areas. We're going to focus on the technical requirements, things that you need technically to have in place so that you can teach, tutor online. But then we're going to look at your professional requirements and your personal requirements. So these are different skill sets that you'll need. So let's start with the technical requirements, and you're going to hear this everywhere. You definitely need the computer, the internet, the headphones. You need a reliable internet and your camera so that you can talk face to face with your students. It's not that you can't teach over the phone, but it's not as effective, especially when you're teaching language, because you need to see what they're doing with their how they're forming their words, and you need to be able to see what's happening so that you can if they're struggling, you can see why they're struggling, and then you can figure out how to help them. So you definitely need the computer with camera, microphone, and headsets. And the reason, now, I don't always use headphones. I used to use them all the time. I have my super serious ones, like a call center, and then I have my iPhone ones. Right now, I don't need it, because my computer works really, really well. When I'm in class, I do use them, just because it blocks out everything else, and it really helps me focus on the students. And it concentrates the sounds that they're making into your ears, into your brain, so you can really focus on that. So I highly recommend using headphones. And again, even just sometimes the iPhone ones work really well for me. Um, so there are those technical things. You also need systems, like a scheduling system, a place where people can look at your calendar and book an appointment there, or see the schedule and um, know what your availability is, or when you hold classes. If you do group classes and you hold them on Monday, Wednesday, Friday at 2 in the afternoon, the scheduling system will allow not only students to see that and clients to sign up that way, but it also allows you to block off your time and really set the limits that you need to set in your life as far as that goes. And so many of them to handle the payments for classes and things like that. So super, super helpful. So therefore, the scheduling system, payment collection, and you also need a business account at your bank. So I would suggest a business checking, but you can talk with them, and they would help you determine what's best for you. You can also talk to a financial advisor, to figure out how to set that up and what you need and all that. Um, And then you also need contracts. So there's legal things that you need to think about. So contracts are one of them. I've worked with clients before, and when I first started out, I didn't have a contract in place or an agreement or what have you. And you really do need to have them. It doesn't have to be complicated, but you need to be able, within the contract, it sets the terms for payment and late payment, and it sets the expectations for the student. What are you allowed to do? Are you, what happens if you don't show up for a class? Are you going to refund that? Or are you going to say, you didn't give me enough time? I'm not, no refunds after whatever. You can decide what those boundaries are that you need to be able to run your business effectively and not feel like garbage. A lot of times, we give in on all of these different areas because we think we have to in order to retain the client. But when you really think about it, is that the kind of a client that we want in our business? Is this client bringing us joy in our teaching experience and therefore allowing us to bring joy to their learning experience? Or is this student client, however you want to phrase it, just sucking all our energy from us and making us miserable? So really, the contract that you have your students sign and that you sign just puts everything out, lets people know what to expect and what not to expect. Don't expect to call me in the middle of the night because you have a question. Where with, and you can set a time limit. I do this with my editing clients as well. Um, you know, if you have a quick question and it's going to take, it's a 5-minute question, great. I think some clients I allow 10 minutes, but anything over 10 minutes I then start charging you for. So things like that, because your time is valuable, and it needs to be respected. And if you set that tone right away at the beginning through the contract, um, and again, it doesn't have to be a big deal. Um, it's just a matter of course, this is part of signing up for the class, and these are the expectations, and this is the contract, and I ask you to sign it, because then the client is then, your student is then saying, assuming you've put it down in the contract, that I agree to show up for every class. And if I know I'm not going to be able to show up for every class, then I agree that I'm going to give you at least a day or whatever time frame you set, and that if I don't follow that, then I'm not going to expect a refund. Things like that. And it just sets the tone for that first class, and it allows you to get a lot of that house cleaning stuff out of the way. But it just allows you to just hit the ground, as we say, hit the ground running and just get right into things. And there's nothing awkward that you have to deal with. Contract, contract, contract. You need those legal things in place. And then what was the other thing? Oh, yes, you need to have assessment tools. You need to decide how are you going to, especially if you're doing this on your own. If you're working for a company, they probably have their own assessment tools. But there are many companies out there who just they rely on you and you preparing the classes, etc. So you need to know, how are you going to assess your students, and you'll need to be able to have it in a way, something that you can prepare and give to the parents or give to the client, that's at whatever interval it says in your contract. um, this is how we're going to determine your progress, and whether you can have the results or whatever that is, however you work that out. But this is how we're going to determine your progress. So you need to figure that out. How are you going to do that? What are you going to use for that? You also need the class materials, whatever it is you need physically to teach your lesson. And you need to have your lesson plans in place. So again, many companies out there do provide, they have their own curriculum and their own way of teaching. So many of them do provide it, but many others don't. And if you're not working for a company, if you're just doing, if you're doing private tutoring, maybe you do it face to face, maybe you do it online. But you need to have the lesson plans developed. You need to have your curriculum. What is it that you need to teach? How are you going to handle different types of teaching? Are you going to focus on just writing business emails or interviews, or are you working with children, and do they, all of those things? You then have to have your plan, your lessons planned out. And it's a really good idea to have your curriculum figured out. How are you going to take the student from where they are to the success level that you promised them? So definitely important. You also need systems in place. So systems for onboarding your students. I don't like using jargon, and yet that particular piece of jargon just really does work. How are you going to bring your students on board to your little ship of tutoring school here? What do you need to have in place? What do you need from them? What information do they need to know? Things like that. So what's your system for that? What's your system for class management? How are you going to handle managing the class? And what are your systems for your finances and all of those different things? Grading and, assessments, and you really think through all of those different aspects of how you, as an English teacher, work best, and then what systems do you need to have in place to have the whole thing just flow smoothly, that will allow you to be able to be creative and flexible and all the other personal things we're going to get into in a second. And then you need, and I think so, those are the basics. So, you've got your equipment that you need, which I'll refresh your memory there. The computer, a camera, reliable internet, and a microphone of some kind. Those are all just basics. And then the scheduling system, a system to collect payments, and your business account. And then you need your contract and your assessment tools, class materials, your lesson plans, and the systems that we just talked about. So those are the technical, the basics on the technical things to just really get you started, the absolute necessities. Other things you can add as you go along. You can add an email marketing system if you want. You can add, maybe you want to teach on a particular platform that you've worked with. Maybe you've worked for a company and they have a platform that you like. You can add that as you go along. You always have a place like Google Classroom and stuff that you don't have to, that will get you started. But then you can add things on as you go along, but don't overcomplicate it, honestly. Don't get so caught up in the shiny object syndrome, in the sense that, oh, there's a shiny new toy I can use in my business. The more working pieces you have, the more chance it can break down. So you've got your basics, and then you can add on what you need to make the rest of your life easier. But then once that's all working, unless it makes, actual business sense to add something else, or, then don't go getting caught in that. But um, these are the basic technical things. So now, what about your professional requirements? So as a professional, and as teachers, we are professionals, whether this is our first day of teaching, or we've never quite taught before, but we have a class coming up, tomorrow, or whether we've been teaching for 45 years. We're all professionals, and we're all here to help each other out. So, um, but as a professional, in order for us to be able to be out there teaching, there are some requirements that we need. And in order for us to be good at our jobs and effective in our teaching, in our profession, we do need certain skills and certain training, um, professional skills and professional training. We'll get into the personal skills and the training there in just a minute. So what you need first and foremost is your basic certification. I have a TEFL and TESOL certification, which is teacher of English as a foreign language and a teacher of English as a second or other language, and that's a dual. In my case, it's a dual certification. Um, when I went to get it, I was unaware that there were other certifications, but I'm super proud of my achievements, and I'm still getting more certifications. And this is the paid part of it's this. There's Oh my goodness, I get so excited. The company that I got my certification through is International TEFL and TESOL Training. So ITTT. And I put a link for 20% off. If you don't have your certification yet, or if you want to go for further certifications, I highly recommend them. They are ultra professional. Thorough in their teaching, and all the help in the world. They give you all the help you could possibly need. There's resources for you to go to. There's job help, all that stuff. They're just phenomenal. So the link is below. That particular link is an affiliate, and it's marked. So, okay. So your basic certification. And like I said, I got my TEFL TESOL one, but they also have I don't again, I think it looks to me like CELTA, and I don't know if that is how it's pronounced, or if you go by the initials CELTA. I think it's CELTA. Um, and that is your certification in teaching English to speakers of other languages. The initials don't match up. I think there's a I couldn't find another thing. My feeling is that it means certification in English language teaching arts, but it's just my guess. And then so there's the CELTA, and then there is and that one, the Cambridge University, um, the Cambridge Dictionary. It's through them, and again, highly respected, highly respected. So, and that's the thing, you want to be careful with whom you get your certification, or from whom you get your certification, because you want it to be a reliable, well-respected company. Um, because I'm not going to say prestigious, but the more respected it is within the profession, the better the better chance you'll have of getting a better job. So there you go. And they also have a diploma version of that, and that's a Delta. So a CELTA is your basic certification through Cambridge, and the Delta is the diploma. Now through the ITTT, I'm doing the diploma program, so they do have one as well. So again, I recommend it. It's so thorough. Um, so those are your basics, and then there are other ones that involve like a test of, what is it? Teaching knowledge test, a TKT test, a key, I'm sorry, TKT certification, and then the Delta, the diploma. So there are other the through Cambridge. I believe it's Cambridge University. I'm sorry, I had it in my head, and I don't know why I didn't write it down. Um, but if you look up CELTA, you'll be brought to the right place. Um, but they have a series of tests, and they have tests for assessing your students' levels as well. So that is definitely a way that a resource for you for your assessments of your students. Something we just talked about. And then what you also need as a professional, you're going to be asked for teaching experience. Now, as a new teacher, as someone who's just been certified, you're thinking to yourself, it's that age old conundrum. You're telling me that I need experience in teaching, or you won't hire me, but how can I get experience if you won't hire me? So the best way, the easiest way around that is volunteer. You can volunteer. See if your local school system is looking for volunteers to help their non-native English speaking students. We used to have a program. I'm not. I again. Um, all the kids in the neighborhood they're all um, outgrown school, etc. So I don't know if these programs are still in the schools, but depending on the area that you live in, if you're in a heavily an area that is heavy with immigrants, then definitely has to be a place at any of the high schools, the whatever grade level you want, or community centers, things like that. You could offer teaching. You could offer classes, you could volunteer at the schools to help the students, ask if they have a program for that. That's the best way to do it. You might actually be able to offer English classes at a community center or the library. Ask and find out from there. The library is a huge resource. If you live in the United States, um, that's the system that I know. I'm not sure how libraries work in the UK or in anywhere else around the world, but in the United States, libraries, they're free. You just get your library card and you can borrow materials, and your librarians are phenomenal resources. So they will be able to they know what's going on in the communities, etc. So ask them if they know of anything, or ask them if it's possible for you to teach a course, and they'll tell you all the details. So volunteering is the best way to go about it if you're brand new. Um, or if you've been doing this for some time, but you'd like to be able to put something else on your resume. You know, companies like to see that you're involved in your community. So you can certainly, even if you have a lot of teaching experience, you can certainly volunteer this same way. Ask those same questions, because that would look great on your resume, that you're that interested in the language and teaching the language, that you offer it to people who might not be able to do it any other way. So consider that as well. Um, so there's your professional, some of them. So teaching experience. Oh, and then the other thing I want to say is that I'm not 100% sure whether this falls under personal or professional, but it's a good transition. Is it seems like we shouldn't have to even mention this, but there are many teachers out there who do it because they think it's easy. They do it it's easy money, or it doesn't take a lot of work, or I taught math in the school system for a while, and some of the teachers there, they just didn't care about the kids. They didn't care about the actual knowledge that they were passing on. This was just something to do while their husbands were at work. And it's a shame. So you really need to, if you want to be successful at this, if you want this profession to bring you joy and to bring you that sense of fulfillment, that you're doing something amazing for the world, you really need to have that passion for teaching. And you don't have to teach children. That seems to be where a huge opportunity is. But you don't have to teach children. And you could, and if you end up teaching children, you can teach the higher grades. Maybe you can teach high school instead of kindergarten or middle school. You can definitely teach adults. There are so many, the world is full of people in business who are trying to do business globally. So, that, and, obviously universities, etc. So you you really have to love what you do, and you also have to love learning yourself, because as teachers, and I know I mentioned this last week, it's our responsibility to model that, what it's like to be a student, and how to be a good student. Not as in, oh, you're such a good girl or you're such a good boy, but a good student in the sense that, um, the learning is about discovery, and that discovery leads to another discovery, and the whole opening up of the world to us, and then therefore to whomever we come in contact with, through the discoveries that we've made, and through sifting them through and sorting them out and making sense of the world through these discoveries. So it's all about passing on that passion for learning. Um, and it happens to be, for us in our case, through learning English. But again, as I've said so many times, just because learning a language involves the whole, uh, there's the linguistic development, but there's also the cultural development, the historical development. So you've got all the fields, um, of learning wrapped up into learning English or learning a language. In our case, it's English. So you really have to have that passion for learning and that passion for passing that passion on, okay? Um, and if you don't have it, it's okay. You might need to. I didn't always have it like this. I've developed it more and more and more as I keep discovering more and more. And I can say, oh my goodness, that is so fascinating. Wait a minute, what does that word mean? And where did that come in? So it will develop, but you have to want it to develop, and you have to understand that we are the example for our students as to what being a student means. So, professional. Okay. Oh, and the other thing I do want to mention is that for teaching English, most places are going to expect a college degree. Now, not everybody in the world has a college degree. So you're probably thinking, well, what am I supposed to do? It's not 100% necessary. There are job opportunities that you can get into that don't require it. Think about it, though. Think about, is this something that you want to add to your whole language journey plan, your career plan, I suppose. It's never too late to go back to college and get your degree. One of our family friends was 60 when she went back to get her, I forget what her degree was in. Um, I don't know. I want to say it was a law degree or something. And actually, one of my students, her mother, who's roughly my age, maybe a little younger, she's now going to school to get her law degree. I think the family friend, it wasn't teaching, it wasn't English. I think she went back for a history degree or something. She had always wanted to be an historian. So she did it when she had the time and she was able to save the money for it. So never too late. So think about the college degree, but it's not essential. Um, all right. So what are some personal requirements that you'll need in order to teach English as a second language? So here's some character traits that you'll need to really think about. And again, these can be developed, and um, don't panic if you don't have them, because like I said, you can develop them, and they may not be your ultimate favorite thing, but as long as you can get good at them, you will find much better success in your career, and much more satisfaction, um, if you can develop them. So the first thing is your commitment to constant improvement. So basically, nobody's perfect. And we have our good days as teachers and we have our bad days as teachers. We have days that we're really proud of as teachers and days that we really wish never happened. So learn from those days that we wish never happened, and learn from the days that, oh my goodness, this was the best day ever. Be a student of yourself. What did I do well that made this day go so amazingly? And what did I do that I never should have done? Or what did I do that caused this day to be so miserable? So you're always learning and you're always looking for ways to improve. Um, just even a day to day on a class to class kind of a thing. But then, okay, how do I improve this particular skill or that skill? Or, is there something I'm finding out about? Is there a method of teaching that I'm intrigued about? How do I improve my method of teaching, et cetera, et cetera? So always be looking for ways to improve. You need adaptability and flexibility. Now, many people think that those are the same thing, but adaptability is your ability to adjust to suit the circumstances. So we do this with our students. If we have a student who isn't quite understanding something the way we've presented it, then we adapt the lesson to fit the way the student learns. We modify it, we adjust it. We don't change it. We just work it a little differently so that the student can understand it. And the flexibility comes in with our ability to, and then here's an example. The flexibility is the ability to just flow easily from one thing to the next and not get all bent out of shape that our plan didn't go to plan. And here's an example. When I was teaching math, they were 12 and 13-year-old students. And I'm given the lesson, and I think it was algebra. We were introducing them to algebra. And it was kind of a rainy day, but it was supposed to clear up. And the kids just were not interested at all. And I could see them starting to make paper airplanes underneath the desks. So I thought, I am not going to give them the opportunity to now cause trouble and turn this into a bad day. So I just stopped. I stopped teaching. And I said, I'd like you to raise your hands. How many of you have learning math as the number 100 thing on your list of things you care about today? Is it at the bottom of the list? Raise your hand." And I raised my hand, and they were shocked, and they said, you know, "What," and, like, they didn't know that they were allowed to not care. But so some of them started to raise their hand, and then others did. The ones with the paper airplanes did. Um, so I said, "Okay, now that we know, now that we're honest with what's going on with our feelings, let me just say this. You're here because you have to be here. I'm here because I want to be here with you and teach you this. However, if our brain, we've got so many other things, as we've just said, so many other things that are on our minds that are blocking our way, and we can't focus today. So let's take those paper airplanes that I see that you're making, and let's have a paper airplane contest. Who can throw it the farthest across the room?" And we turned it into an aerodynamics class. So we're still learning about stuff, but it just broke up the tension. And so the lesson I was planning on teaching, they needed to know, but they were never going to learn it if I just kept going with it. So the flexibility there to shift gears allowed the kids to just release a lot of stuff, have fun, and to understand that learning isn't boring, that learning isn't a chore and something they have no control over. It allowed them to realize they have a lot of control over what they learn and how what they're learning applies to the real world. So we did that. We did the lesson I planned for that day. We did it the next day, and they were fine with it. So flexibility, adaptability. Um, And then, oops, sorry, lost my, and obviously creativity. We have to be creative. We have to find that, um, ways in which we can impart our knowledge to our students in a way that they'll understand it, in a way that their brains can accept it, in a way that they can make sense of it. So we have to be creative. It doesn't always, and by creative, I'm not saying that you have to, you know, put on a clown costume and entertain them. That's not creative. That's distracting. Creative is in, okay, we have to go through, the past perfect tense here today, but it seems really dry, and I know my student isn't going to accept it that way. So how can I present it in a way that will make sense? That's where the creativity comes in. Sometimes it can be fun. Sometimes you can do all sorts of fun things, but it doesn't always have to be that. And then you have to be observant. You have to be creative and you have to be diplomatic. So observant, you have to be able to, even if you have a bunch of students, I'm not going to say kids because not everybody teaches kids. Even if you have a bunch of students in the class, you have to observe if there's a big group activity, but you've got someone over there who's not really joining in. Okay, you have to observe, okay, what's going on? Why are they not joining in? Do they look like they don't know what they're doing and they don't understand? Do they look like they're not feeling well? So we have to be observant, and also observant in, like I mentioned before about the sounds. Um, I was talking to the students only on the students only live stream about the sounds and how critical they are. But you have to be observant. You have to watch them make their sound. You have to listen. Is that really the sound? Are they close? Are they mixing their own language in? So you have to be observant. What was the other one? You have to be diplomatic, certainly. Um, oh, yeah, we did creative. I had that down twice. Silly me. So you have to be diplomatic because you've got the parents to deal with if you're teaching children. You have the company that's hiring you to teach their business English. You've got the adult students as well. Um, You got all sorts of things, even within the classroom, even with the students. I find the most effective way to help people learn is to use my diplomacy skills and knowing how to encourage people and lead them to do what they need to do in order to succeed. And so there's a lot of diplomacy that happens there. Um, and let me see. Okay, so those are some character traits that you need. And again, if you're not good at them yet, if it's not a character trait that is strong in you, you can develop them. It's not the end of the world. There are so many things you can do to develop those. And so now we're going to go into skills, and then I'll talk about the knowledge base um, that you'll need for teaching. So skills, you need effective communication skills. And in one of the live streams, the last one or the one before that, I had given a link to an effective a person who specializes in effective communication. And I realized I did not put that in this one, so I will put that in after this processes. So you need effective communication skills. You need um, leadership skills. Absolutely, you need leadership skills because you're leading the class, number one. But you have to lead all the students in your class, but you also have to lead the individual students. You have to be a good leader of each individual student. You have to have good leadership skills with the parents as well, or your client, um, because you're the expert here. Um, they're coming to you. People are looking to you to step into that role of being the expert. And those leadership skills will help you and give you the confidence you need in order to step into that role. And the more you can step into that role of being the authority, then um, the more value you're going to feel you bring to the table, which will be true, but the more value you are going to project to your students, which helps your bottom line because it allows you to be able to charge the rates that your skills and gifts and abilities demand. Okay. Um, so leadership skills, definitely. And you need administrative skills because you have a lot of behind the scenes work to do. There's the finances, there's sending out emails, there's, if you have tutors working for you, there's human resources, that's administrative. You need to send out invoices and all of that stuff. So you need those skills. And again, they can be learned. There's plenty of courses out there, plenty of people who teach entrepreneurs, and plenty of people who teach specifically teachers how to acquire these skills. And then finally, you need stress management skills, not only for yourself, because as we all know, teaching is stressful. It can be. Um, and whether things are happening within the classroom or just in your personal life, we need to be able to manage that stress so that we don't bring it into the classroom. Because number one, it's bad for business. But number two, um, it's just who wants that? It's unprofessional to bring our stuff into the classroom. I'm not saying it doesn't happen. I'm not saying, every teacher doesn't have their moment. But the more we can learn how to deal with the stress and manage that stress and have ways to release that stress productively, then the better chance we'll have of not bringing it into the classroom. All right. So, and one thing I'd like you guys to do is in the comments, if you think of other character traits or skills or knowledge base, or even other requirements that you found as a teacher that we need as teachers. Put them in the comments, share it, and we'll go over them and or talk about them if we need to, or thank you for sharing, because now we'll know, oh yeah, I really do need to develop that. I never thought of that. So, and I'm fine not having thought of everything, because there's enough going on in life to I don't want to be responsible for knowing everything. I'll look it up, and you're sharing it really helps. So please do share. And so finally, the knowledge based skills, or the knowledge base that we really should require of ourselves, and we really do need as teachers. We need that knowledge base of child development. Now you're thinking, because then we won't be expecting too much of the children that we're teaching. If we're teaching children, we will understand maybe why they're acting up, because we're asking too much of them, or we're asking them to be someplace that they're not able to be, because now we understand how a child develops, and what develops first, and when things come into play for them. So it's really important for us to understand child development. um, and we can also use this understanding of child development when we're dealing with adults, because it helps us to remember, okay, children don't act up for no reason. If an adult is being difficult, or if an adult is acting out of their usual character, then that triggers us to say, well, what's causing that? And we can remember, are we pushing them beyond their limits? Just like with children, we're not treating them like children, but it's allowing us to be more observant and figure out what the issue is, so that we can clear up that issue and then get to the success of learning. Um, so we also need to, because we're talking about English and learning the English language, we need to have the knowledge base of the historical knowledge base of um, the general historical knowledge base. How did um, Well, in a few areas. First of all, how did English spread all over the world like it has? Where did it originate? How did it spread? And then what happened to the language as it spread to these different places and became entrenched in the United States, or in Canada, or in the British Isles there, or any place else, Australia, any place else that English is spoken. What is that historical development? Now you don't have to focus on everything. You don't have to know everything about all of them, but for me, as as an American and who's teaching English, I need to know how my version of the language developed within my home, um, through across the country, and also in different parts of the country. And it's my responsibility, because how a language develops, um, and the culture that's developed around that, or alongside with it, influences the language and influences the way people in that area communicate. So, and again, people I'm in the Northeast. So people in the Northeast of the United States, there are many regional ways that we communicate that are very different from the people in the Southwest, or the South, or the middle of the country, or anywhere else in the country. So it helps us to understand each other. And here's another story. Um, I I was a German major, political science and German, and so I took a semester abroad to Austria, and when we were all the different students that were gathering from around the country were meeting when we met for the first time, I had barely opened my mouth, I thought, to talk to anybody, and they just immediately said, "You're from Boston, aren't you?" And I didn't have, and I still don't have, it's more so than I did at the time, but my Boston accent is not thick. And, but they said, "You're from Boston, aren't you?" And I said, "How did you know?" And I barely finished. They were all from California, which is much more of a relaxed culture. They said, "You are so uptight." So I was nervous, and it is the New England area, and Boston, New York, the cities, they're very, you know, this things get done, bing, bam, boom. I use that phrase all the time. Um, but yeah, we don't like downtime in the way that they do. We feel as though if you just take your time to do something, then you're wasting my time. I have things to do. I have a life to live. Um, Places to go, people to see, that kind of a thing. And so it helps us to be able to communicate with each other. And because of them, I learned to be able to relax and enjoy myself and have fun and not always have to be going, going, going and moving, moving, moving and, on to the next bigger and better thing. It was great. I loved meeting them, and it was just a wonderful experience. And I think that's why I'm much more thoughtful now. I'm a thoughtful speaker. I think about what's coming out of my mouth. Um, and I know I learned that from them. So anyway, we have to, the knowledge bases, we have to understand the historical, the political, the cultural development of the area of the English language world that we're teaching about. Um, and what was the other thing? Oh, we have to know our sounds. We have to know the sounds of English. So the International Phonetic Alphabet needs to become oxygen for you. It needs to be as natural for you as breathing, because we have to teach our students the correct sounds of English. Once they know the correct sounds and how to completely say the word, then we can work on making it more native like. And I'm very big on that. I'm huge on that. Watch the students only live stream from today, and you'll hear all about that. It's critical that we learn the the foundational aspects and we learn them correctly. Then once we've mastered them, then we can work on the ways that they're manipulated, um, to make conversation easier. So I do not agree with the teachers I see online who focus only on, well, and maybe I shouldn't say that, but there are so many teachers out there who think that, I don't know, it seems to me, I could be wrong, that they think it's cool to teach to speak like a native. Well, you can't do that until you teach the foundational sounds correctly. You can then say, "This is how you say the word." The word pet has a T on the end. Pet. We need to know how to produce all of the sounds that make up that word, or the combinations, what have you. And then we can say, "Okay, so this is the word. Now, in conversation, you're going to hear it like this. Because you have the T and you're moving on to a different, whatever particular sound it is, then in natural speech, it tends to get dropped." So we need to train our students to be able to hear what natural speech sounds like, but we need to teach our students the full, honest to goodness word. We can't teach them to be lazy. And that's what jumping right into speak like a native does. It teaches our students to be lazy, and we're giving them bad information. It is information that they are going to need, but they're not ready for that yet. So we need to be highly aware of that. Sorry. So really learn the International Phonetic Alphabet, learn how to say the sounds yourself, get as clear as you can with the sounds. Now, again, people think that um, when people say you need a native level proficiency or whatever, you're not being asked to lose your identity into the world of English. What is being asked is that you have you have the ability to that you've mastered the language the way a native speaker would master it. So that means getting the sounds right, because especially with English, we have so many words that if you shift the sound a little bit, then you're changing the word. And so I cannot emphasize this enough. I'll stop trying, but I really hope you understand that. Um, I'll try to do a video on that, but at any rate, sounds, IPA, International Phonetic Alphabet, learn to live and breathe it and work on it yourself. I do it. I work on it, and I'm going to be pretty soon. I'm working my students through the consonants. We're almost done with those. Then we'll be doing the vowels, and as soon as we're done with that, we're going to learn to spell in the International Phonetic Alphabet, because when you go to a dictionary, I want my students to be able to see that the pronunciation is right there. They don't need me to be there to say that word for them and make them say it right, because they're going to know what those symbols mean and how they're put together, and therefore they're going to know how to say that word. They're going to be able to learn themselves. So critical, critical, critical. Um, and then I'm hearing a lot about the science of reading. It's referred to as SOAR, SOR. And I'm really impressed with the results I'm seeing. So we need to have the knowledge base of the different methodologies that are out there for teaching, because just with this whole science of reading thing, I'm seeing how ineffective and kind of backwards the traditional way of teaching reading is, and the way that, how many of us have read to children, read a story, or had them, read it to us, and rather than focusing on the sounds, we sort of force them to say the word, force them into it, but they haven't worked it through. We've done the work for them. And it's just fascinating. So I'm still looking into that, but we need to have that knowledge base of the different methodologies out there, and why they work, why they don't work, why they work in some cases and not others. We need that. We need, as teachers, to require that of ourselves. And then also we need to also, as teachers, I'm an editor, I'm a writer as well. So it's important to me anyway. But as a teacher, by having that more advanced knowledge of how to write in English at a higher level, at a more advanced level, creatively using all of the resources that you gain over your lifetime, it helps us to be able to nudge our students into a higher level of fluency. It helps us to nudge our students into creative thinking. It helps us be able to nudge our students into um, being able to think on their feet and correct themselves. So if we become better at writing more eloquently and editing our own stuff, proofreading, editing, all of that stuff, that is super useful in the business world. Certainly in a university, we need to be able to proofread and not rely on translators and things like that. It helps us to become better teachers. It helps our students to become better students. And therefore, when they get, on the job or wherever, um, better communicators. Um, but it also teaches us how to think on our feet. And that's important when you're in the middle of a conversation in a language that is not your native language. There's a lot of thinking on our feet that has to happen. And by working with our students through the writing and bringing our students along to a higher and higher level of writing, it's only going to help them out. It's going to help us be better teachers because we're going to understand the language more. So that's another thing. Um, to me, as a teacher, we need to require that of ourselves because it is part of there's speaking the language, writing the language. There's how you do business in the language, and then there's all the social and cultural aspects um, of that language. That is my philosophy of the 4 pillars of 360-degree fluency um, in any language. I teach English, so in English. Um, and I hope this is an eye-opening experience for you because we tend to forget this isn't just a side gig. This isn't just something that helps us travel the world. Teaching English anywhere we want is a fabulous side effect of this. It's a fabulous benefit of it, but there's a big responsibility that we tend to forget. And depending on what the student's goal is, it may or may not be as big of a deal in different circumstances, but I'm passionate about teaching. I'm passionate about my language, so it is a big deal. And then finally, I think I mentioned this already, just the development of the English language. How did it develop? And um, once you understand how many different influences have worked their way in and woven themselves into the language, the more you're going to understand why it's so confusing, why there are so many exceptions, and how to help our students navigate that. So it's super, super important. You really cannot separate the cultural development, the historical development, and the cultural society, and how the language developed within all of that. You can't separate them if you want to truly be fluent. Okay, so this has been longer than I intended, but clearly, um, at least to me, clearly important information. And these early ones, please let me know if these are too long for you. I I don't feel as though they are, but that's me because it's my passion and it's I just want to help you. I want to help you become the best teacher of English that you can. Again, I don't know it all, but this is what I know, and I just want to share it with you. So, and it is important when you really start to put it all together. So let me know how you feel about the timing of these, if you want them longer or not as long, if you want just shorter clips or an all day affair, let me know. So, I mentioned the affiliate link for the certification, so that's for 20% off. I did not mention, I don't think, there's a link in the description for my conversation club to sign up for that. And if you want to sign up, if you want me to create a teachers only conversation club so we can talk about teaching English and use our conversational time that way, let me know. Put that, email me, drop it in the comments, what have you, and I'll put that together. Right now, there's 3 groups that meet once a week, and I've got them at different days and different times to try to get everybody around the world an opportunity, or give everyone an opportunity. You're welcome to sign up for as many as you can actually commit to attending, and the price varies according to that. But I highly recommend it because, again, I design any product that I design, any resource that I design, the courses, anything, I'm designing it to help you succeed, to focus on what you need the most, um, based on the purpose of the product. In this case, conversation. I know so many of my students have never had the chance to really use it, and this is a safe place to come to practice your speaking, to get better at your speaking, to be clearer, to help you think, to get ideas. You know, is eh, to talk to me and just become the best you can be. Anyway, okay. So I will see you next week, same time, same place. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Okay. All right. You have a great week. Bye bye.